Hello, it's me, Melly of magicwithmelly.com, and I wanted to get on and talk to you a little bit about the way I came up with my theme for Inktober, hashtag Inktober. I have never done Inktober before. The only 30-day challenge that I've done was a 30-day blogging challenge earlier this year. And because I've been looking for more inspiration in my artwork and ways to explore a little bit more, I saw the hashtag for Inktober and I thought, hey, it's almost October, I'm gonna play. And one of my favorite things to draw is unicorns, and I call them unicorns, so unicorns and unique put together, so there's a QU in the middle. And I really love drawing them, and I thought, you know, what are ways that I could leverage something I already love to draw, use ink. So I've been also playing around with these brush pens. This is a Kuretake number 8 fountain brush pen, so there are actual ink cartridges in here if you've never seen one before. This is a carbon ink cartridge so that it is waterproof ink, which is important to me because I also decided I don't want to just stick to ink. I want to add some color, and watercolors are super fun to play with. So the idea came to me because I was unpacking some things. I moved recently, and I have my Daniel Smith dot cards, my sample dot cards, and you can get these for about 20 bucks on Amazon. There's 238 different watercolor dots, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to have a reason to play around with some of the colors that I've swatched but that I don't own and that I don't normally use. And so that's how the idea for my first Inktober drawing, which is the color red, came about. So I decided that each day I'm going to use the name of a watercolor, or in this case it was more just the color, because these dots are so small that I actually started using a crimson. I don't remember which crimson I was using. I think it was Pyrrole Crimson that I was using over here, and the dot ran out really quickly, and so I started adding in a bunch of other reds. So this just became red, which you can see I wrote down at the bottom because I ended up using so many other reds. But the idea for the inspiration of the name of the watercolor kind of happened after I'd created this one already, because I realized that, especially with my Jane Davenport mixed media watercolor sets, these are her petite palettes, they have such fun names like Buff and Vitamin C and Kiss Kiss. Oops. And in her Brights palette, that was the neutrals palette, in her Brights palette we have Buzzy, Ladybug, Frida, Mystic, Jiminy, Mermaid. So those are super fun names, right? That bring to mind imagery automatically that I can weave into my unicorns. And red was for day one. This is Buzzy, which is one of Jane Davenport's colors from her Petite palette. That's the yellow in the Brights palette. It's called Buzzy. And you can see I interpreted that by adding some bee wings and a little flower tail to my dancing unicorn. So the fact that Jane especially uses these fun, delightful, playful names for her watercolors started me on the idea of using the actual name of a watercolor, as opposed to when I started for day one, it was just going to be using a color, a specific color every day, and then interpreting that in some way in the theme of the unicorn's pose or decoration. And then when I realized that I have so many watercolors that have these fun, playful names, I thought, that's even more inspiration, and that's even more playful and fun for me. Another watercolor maker, this is Jasper Stardust. He is a handmade watercolor maker off of Etsy, and some of his colors are named Starlight. There's Starlight, there's Sunray, there's Goldfish, there's Pike's Pink, as opposed to Pike's Peak, which is a mountain here in Colorado. There's Phoenix, there's Velvet. So some of his color names as well, his pigment names, inspire me or bring imagery to mind that make it fun to problem solve and come up with ways to interpret that in, you know, unicorn form, I guess, if you will. I've been using my Jane Davenport Mixed Media Journal. This one is actually almost full, but I've been using that for some of my sketches. So you can see I played around with another one that I've played around with. And I actually jumped ahead a little bit just in case I end up getting swamped late or, you know, for whatever reason can't get to my ink and watercolor for a day. So I jumped ahead and I've actually created a couple in advance so that I have a little bit of padding because I'm hoping to finish all 31 days. This is a color called Green Earth, which is by another handmade watercolor maker called Green Leaf and Blueberry. They're a husband-wife team based here in Western Colorado. And so for this one, you know, I used Green Earth, and the imagery that came to me was a unicorn rolling on her back, and then some flowers came through. So that was another one. And that one was started here in the sketchbook. This was the rough idea. So I'm not spending a whole lot of time here. You can see I was playing around with Kiss Kiss. This was an idea for Buff, an idea for Frida, which is another of Jane Davenport's watercolors in her Petite palette, in the Brights palette as well. And so I'm just doing these rough little sketches in my sketchbook, and then I take out the paper because I have this 6x9 watercolor paper. This specific brand is B paper. I also just ordered some 6x9 paper by Jack Richardson, I believe, so that I could compare the quality of the two papers between B paper and Jack Richardson. Both 6x9 packages do come in sheets of 50, so there will be more than enough for me to finish this series. So I just wanted to give you a preview of my interpretation of Inktober. There can be lots of rules, but there don't have to be lots of rules. I took the idea of a theme from a woman on YouTube and Patreon that I'm following named Minnie Small, and she talked about, you know, sometimes just having a theme helps you get that creative flow going. You know, when you give yourself parameters, and, you know, my parameters have become, you know, the ink drawing of the unicorn, surrounding the unicorn with a field of color, the color it was inspired by, and then painting the same color around and leaving a white frame. So for both of these, I've got that similar theme going, and that's what I'm going to continue for the rest of Inktober, and we'll see how it goes. I hope that's inspiring and maybe enlightening and maybe gets your own creative juices flowing, and I'd love to see what you create too.